Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight as we give you some information for our September 17 vote on the bond referendum. Before we begin, I just want to introduce our panel. I'm going to start on your left. First, if you could just wave, Mr. Mike Nicola, he's our facility director. Our director of early childhood is Mr. Wilkinson. We have board member, Mr. Greg Gio, board member Joe Washko, board member Rob Morello, our board president, Tammy Wagner, our director of curriculum and instruction, Stephanie Bush. We also have Lourdes LaGuardia, our business administrator. We have Jen Edwards from Acacia Financial Group. We also have Stephen Siegel from Spiesel Architect Group and Justin Kosick from the Spiesel Architect Group. Also joining us in a little bit will be Tony Salamini, our bond counsel as well. He'll be joining us via Zoom. So tonight, the purpose of this is obviously to help make everyone here aware of the vote for September 17th. Tonight, we're going to hear from many of our panelists to explain all the aspects of the bond referendum, including the insight from district staff about the proposed improvements and how it would positively impact the learning environment for our students. Also, details about the proposed projects and how our district's strategy for fiscal responsibility continues with the bond referendum. We are going to have time at the end for questions. If you could please come like a board meeting, come to the mic and please state your name, address. Online as well, we invite you to participate as well. Same thing, name and address before we answer your question. So give us time, and at the end, our goal is to answer everyone's questions. So my name is George Chidiak. I've been in the district for 12 years, and I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of growth over the years. And again, we have our panel here with us. We're going to go through some slides here. First is going to be the bond referendum overview. We're going to give an overview of the bond referendum process and why the board believes it's a fiscal responsible option. Then we'll hear from our architects who will run down the list of proposed projects. Next, you'll hear from the district's financial advisor. And finally, we will open the floor for questions for our in-person and online participants. So, how do we ask questions? We ask that you hold all questions until after the presentation. We will leave plenty of time at the end to answer your questions. And in the interest of time, please make sure you limit your questions to one. We will then get back to you if you have second or third questions, but please limit it to one to start out, and then we'll come back to you. Also, if you're at home and you want additional information or options, please go to vote@staffordschools.org. That is available on the time leading up to September 17th. And we will make sure we get back to everybody with questions, whether it's tonight or on our website with any questions. Please feel free to get back to us. So first, why bond referendum? A bond referendum is simply a vote putting the important decision in the hands of our community members. On Tuesday, September 17th, the district will ask voters for permission to borrow money through bond sales to complete large-scale projects. There are three main reasons the district is pursuing a referendum. Number one, state aid. If voters approve, the state would pay up to about 1/4 of the total project costs. In our case here, it would be $15.9 million of total projects. This type of funding is only available through an approved referendum. Every New Jersey taxpayer pays towards school improvements, but only districts who have voter approval can bring that money back to the investment into their schools. Our local school districts like Shrewsbury Borough and Monmouth Regional have used these tax dollars to make improvements, and we want to make sure Stafford Township gets a share of that funding as well. Number two, compliments of good planning. We worked with our professional advisors to choose projects that would best support our needs and qualify for state aid. A referendum complements the district's maintenance plan and helps us accommodate future growth. We use the annual budget to cover educational expenses and regular maintenance on our buildings. Cuts to the district's state aid funding have been major repairs have been on hold. This was done strategically to keep our budget focused on what is most important, and that's educating our students. To date, we have lost 47% in state aid funding since 2018. That's a decrease in our budget of over $4 million. That budget cannot absorb the cost of large-scale improvements to multiple buildings. The systems that we are looking to replace with the referendum were all installed at the same time, so they're all due for replacement. A referendum bundles projects together for the most competitive pricing and comes with the benefits of state aid. Voters will be asked to approve the full dollar amount on the ballot, and then the district will receive annual debt service aid for about 1/4 of the project costs from the state. We've exhausted every other option for grants and other money-saving measures. And over the years, I can tell you, have participated in many ESIP and ROD grants, and we're going to continue to look for those as well. So if you think of when you need a new roof or new windows at your home, with inflated costs for labor and materials, most of us can't afford to pay for that outright, and will often take out a home equity loan to cover it and spread out the payments over time. That's similar to what the district is doing with the bond referendum. Demographic study. We conducted one of these in 2023, and it was an independent demographic study that showed our schools are over capacity or close to over capacity. By 2027 and 28, those numbers are predicted to rise even more. By building the proposed addition, we would be able to move all the preschools under one roof and free up spaces at the other schools for the projected increase in enrollment. The tuition-free preschool program is an asset to the community, and we need more space to meet the requirements to receive funding from the state to continue running these programs. 2 previous referendums were held to build new space in response to the growth of our community back in 1997 and 2003, where the PLC and the Ocean Acres buildings were built, again, due to so many people coming down to the shore area and moving. We're also seeing that now, and especially during COVID, a lot of people moved from North Jersey where they could work remotely, where they came down and they now live in the shore where they're students. And I could say in the last 2 years, approximately about 200 more students came into our district after COVID. With this demographic study, it's predicting an increase of approximately 432 more students. And I do know the large development in Stafford Park is still growing and still building. I believe there's 354 residential homes there. Going through the other day, there was about 50 still on the market, about approximately 10 they're still building. So right there, if those houses have families, that's 60 more children if they have one child, 2, obviously 120. So we are seeing a big influx of people coming down here from Toms River, North Jersey, Manchester, Brick, everybody's coming this way. So we have to prepare for that wave of students coming. So why a bond referendum? The third aspect is the timeline. A voter approval in September means construction on the addition could start in the summer of 2025, which is the best time for these projects because they cause the least disruption to education and events. Delayed projects could result in higher costs in the future without the benefit of state aid. So improvements for everyone. As we've said, one of the district's buildings would receive updates if the referendum passes. In this day and age, technology is a huge component to education. The days are over with pens, papers, pencils, blackboards, chalkboards. It's all about technology. And technology, as we all know, is very expensive. And we want to make sure that we're up to date with technology. And that's how our students learn in this day and age. So technology is very expensive, and we want to make sure our students have the best. So at this time, I'm going to introduce our architects, Stephen Siegel and Justin Kozik. I believe Justin's going to speak first, so I'm going to turn it over to Justin.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here this evening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the projects that we'll be doing at each of the schools. So the first school we have on the list is Oxycocos Elementary School. Out of all the schools in the district, this is probably the one that is in need of the most upgrades. HVAC needs upgrades. The classrooms themselves do not meet the needs of the DOE pre-K requirements. There are ADA upgrades that need to be done in all these classrooms. In addition to that, there is an existing trailer at the back of the school, which really is past its useful life. In addition, the district's goal to bring all the pre-K students under one roof requires us to put an addition onto this building. The way we're going to accomplish that, we are going to remove the trailer and then build a 2-story, 24 classroom addition on the back side of the school. In addition to that, All the existing classrooms inside the building will be upgraded to meet the current DOE regulations for pre-K classrooms. Along with that, full HVAC upgrades, a electrical upgrade to support the addition and the improvements, as well as roofing replacement will occur as well at Oxycocos Elementary. So you can see on the screen, there is a kind of a view of some of the current classrooms and a potential look at what the future classrooms could look like after those upgrades. Okay. So next up, we have the PLC. And the PLC, the upgrades that will be received there are HVAC related. All of the HVAC systems in that building are original to the building. They are getting near the end of their useful life. They're at 20 or 20 plus years old. And per ASHRAE guidelines, once you hit about 20 years with any sort of equipment, you're really kind of running into the end of its useful life. So we'll be doing a full HVAC upgrade in all the classrooms and some of the administrative spaces at the PLC. Ocean Acres, a similar situation, a little bit different system, HVAC system they have at Ocean Acres, but once again, the vast majority of the systems at that building are original to the building. They're over 20 years old, nearing the end of their useful life, and are in need of substantial upgrades. And in addition to that, we'll be doing some HVAC controls upgrades to bring the whole BMS system and integrate that into the new upgrades that we'll be doing. So at McKinley, we have some interiors upgrades that we'll be doing. The building was constructed in the 70s and was constructed in such a way where we have kind of modular folding partitions separating a lot of the classrooms. These partitions are not great when it comes to acoustics. They allow sound transfer from classroom to classroom. In addition to that, no electrical outlets can be placed along any of these walls. So it kind of limits the amount of upgrades on the technology side that can be done in those spaces. In addition, all the cabinetry is from the original construction. Some of it really is falling apart, and it's time for an upgrade on the storage side as well. Stafford Intermediate School will be getting new flooring in the gym, on the stage, and in the main entrance. In particular, the gym is critical as it is an existing mercury-containing rubber floor. So that will be abated and a proper non-mercury floor will be installed in its place. Additionally, in the gym, there is a large folding partition which separates the space, allows it to be broken up into multiple spaces, which is currently not functioning and is in need of replacement. And then finally, where we are tonight in the STAC, all of the existing lighting and AV is coming to the end of its useful life. The lighting will be upgraded to LED energy efficient lighting, and the whole AV system will be replaced as well as part of these upgrades.
Great. Thank you, Justin. Appreciate that. At this time, I'm going to turn things over. We have Tony Salamini, that's our bond counsel, that's joining us via Zoom. We also have Jen Edwards at this time from Acacia Financial Group. She's going to update on the tax impact at this time. So Tony and Jen.
Good evening, everyone. This is Tony Salamini again, as George said, from the law firm Mullens, Goldman and Spitzer. We serve as the district's bond counsel. I just wanted to go over a couple of things about the referendum, just to kind of
give us one second.
Mr. Salamini, I'm so sorry. Could you hold for just a moment? We're having trouble with the audio.
Sure.
Eric, can you take a look at that? Yep. Hold on, Tony. 1 second.
Okay, let's try that again. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. There we go. Okay, Tony, if you could start again. This is Tony Salamini, our bond counsel. Okay, Tony.
Thanks, George. Most people actually prefer when you can't hear me, so that's probably a good thing. I wanted to piggyback on what George said about the referendum being a good option. It's not only a good strategic option because of the potential receipt of debt service aid for these projects, but additionally, because of the constraints in a district's general fund, it's usually the only option. So it's the best option because it spreads the cost out over the useful life of the asset and spreads the cost out over all the residents that will be enjoying the improvements over the life of the assets. But it's also usually the best because of the debt service aid component. In your particular case, if the voters approve it, we're looking at approximately $15.9 million worth of debt service aid, which is obviously a substantial amount. Jen Edwards can go into the numbers more specifically, but the other benefit is, as residents, we're all paying into this debt service fund from the state. And, you know, in September alone, there's probably 8 or 9 other referendums throughout the state. So if yours doesn't pass, but those pass, your tax dollars will be going to other communities away from your communities because that money comes from the state of New Jersey. So George talked about your decrease in state aid. This is an opportunity for you to actually get some of that state aid back to you guys. I think this is an appropriate time now to turn it back to Jen Edwards to talk about exactly how it will impact your community financially.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, Jen Edwards.
Thank you, Tony. Now we see you too. Hi. As Tony mentioned, the total cost of the projects are $75.7 million, and the state has committed to paying up to $15.9 million in those project costs. The district will issue bonds for the entire amount. They will issue bonds for $75.7 million, and then annually the state will give aid in the form of debt service aid. So they will pay principal and interest on the bonds for a 25-year period to offset their share of the project costs. Based on the average home assessment in the township, it's an estimated monthly impact of $22 a month. That's on the assessed valuation of your home. So it's what you would see on your tax bill, your assessment. The district does have a tool on the website that you can look up your assessment and then go in and put your exact assessment in, and it will calculate what that impact for you is on a yearly and monthly basis. As I mentioned, the bond will be repaid over 25 years. This is the average useful life of all of the projects in the total project cost. We've assumed a very conservative interest rate for that 25-year period. As you may have heard in the news, you know, it's projected that there's going to be rate cuts in the future. We're hopeful that by the time the district has an approved referendum and gets to market, that those market conditions will drop down and the estimated tax impact will also be reduced at that time. We will be putting a redemption feature on the bond issue. That allows the district in future years to look at interest rates and be able to refinance them just like you would refinance your home mortgage. So if interest rates do drop, they do have to meet certain state requirements. But if they do meet those state requirements, they could call those bonds in and refinance them at a lower interest rate. It is important to note that the district cannot spend 1 cent more than what is approved on the ballot. So if any of the project costs come in over and above the $75.7 million, they will have to reduce scope and cut back on certain items to stay within that project amount.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Edwards. Much appreciated. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you, our administrators, teachers that are here as well. Thank you for coming out here tonight. And I just want to point everybody to our website. Again, there's so much information on there. Please go there, follow us on X and Instagram. And if you don't have an answer, please email us as well. We're there to answer. Please go to staffordschools.org, vote at staffordschools.org. But be sure to vote on September 17th. The polls open 7 to 8 p.m. at your usual polling place. Mail-in ballots must be postmarked for September 17th. And that is it for our presentation. Now, the most important part, obviously, is question and answer. Please feel free to come to the mic. Just state your name, address, and first question over there. Come on up.
All right, thank you all. Can you hear me?
You just turn the mic up a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Right. My name is Barbara Crystal. I live at 248 Bulkhead Avenue, and I taught at Southern Regional for 28 years. So thank you for the great job you did with my two daughters. Appreciate that. I have one question. Is the replacement of the stage and house lighting and audio-visual equipment in the STAC necessary right now? School classrooms and learning spaces used on a daily basis by students seem more critical. Also, since the STAC is used by the community for performances, is there some sort of cost share responsibility with the township? And finally, what is the cost of these upgrades to the STAC?
Okay. Yeah, so we don't share it with the community. So we don't share costs with the township or the community. Yes, we do hold events for the students and staff. And we do hold many, many performances here with our children. So that's why we thought it was very important to obviously put some money towards the lighting, the floors, things like that. The projected cost, I believe, is 1.1 million in regards to, fixing up the lighting, the stage here at the stop. Does anybody have to add to anything?
I
To her
think, Mitch,
question?
there's one additional component that the STAC we're looking towards, and the STAC team, the producers, as well as Ms. LaGuardia have been doing a really nice job of booking this venue out. So we view this not only as something for the community and the school children to use for their performances, we view it as a revenue source for the district as well. So to your point about the township not contributing to the renovations, the district directly profits from these rentals and these outside community uses. So we view it as an opportunity just as much as we do an improvement in a building that we use as a district.
Are the profits that are derived from the shows put into these improvements or like daily costs? How is that money used?
Yeah, the money goes back to the children, in every capacity for the most part. It offsets our budget a little bit, but not a lot, but enough where it offsets our budget where, it could go to the curriculum, technology. Again, most of that profit goes towards the children.
Okay, thank you so much.
One thing I just wanted to add a note real quick. This is also one of those portions of the projects that the state deemed necessary and gave the full funding available. So you get up to 40% for this piece of the project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lisa Bennett, 219 Hilliard Boulevard. My question is in regard to Oxycocos and the improvement to the technology. If maybe you can expand on that a little bit more, because it was my understanding that school is more pre-K, kindergarten, and their learning, I thought, was more focused on socialization and perception enhancing type activities. So I'm not sure what type of technology would be utilized with small children.
I'll go first, Bill, sorry. With that, we do, like, within the classroom, if you look in the upper grades, they have smart boards where we project things on that. We can't even have the Wi-Fi for that, so it would be that type of, and the electrical upgrade to be able to do that. I 100% agree. Preschool is socialization. The state limits the amount of time that they're actually in the pre-K program allowed on technology. So it's not actually like putting 25 computers in a classroom. It's so that we can just do up to state-of-the-art things that other classrooms have within the district.
Gotcha. And just one other question. That 70, just to be clear, the 75, what is it, 0.7?
Yeah, 75.
So that's the amount with the state money subtracted from it, or in addition to? Before.
Subtraction. So 15.9 million will be, funded through the state.
And when we're done paying that off, because you have interest rate and then you have APR. So when we're done paying that off, what will it actually cost? Do you have figures on that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
By the time we're done, you're financing the
75.7 million. Mhm.
Right, and then you're gonna get an interest rate and you're gonna pay it back. So by the time we're done paying it back, what will we have spent? And are there any figures on that or projections?
Yeah, I mean, based on, I mean, I can give you what it's gonna look like over 25 years.
Yeah.
Net of the state aid, because we're estimated to get that. So principal plus interest, it's about 99 million after this, all the state aid.
Okay. And that's spread out over
25 years. Yeah, that's including interest, not, yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Just a little bit more about the technology and
Yes.
in Oxycocus as Director of Early Childhood. As Ms. Bush said, that we do have some smart boards now, but they're table type smart boards that take up space where the students are. So we're able, hopefully with this, put them on the wall at an appropriate height for our preschoolers. And additionally, that technology could even be looked at as the lighting in the classrooms. So right now it's either the bright lights or they're off. So they go through rest nap time. So we're looking to get lighting that will help them during the days, whether they have to, calm down a bit if we turn down the lighting. Those types of things could be looked at as technology type things in our eyes from the preschool world that will help our kids grow.
Thank
Okay,
you so
thank you.
much.
Anybody else? Sure. Come on up.
Yeah, I'm Jim Hubner from 36 Lyle Avenue. My questions are more, I guess, what exactly the improvements in Oxycocus are going to be. I know, by the way, I saw the video over the summer, very effective video, I thought, showed, how the kids, just the windows themselves are creating drafts in the, I mean, it's just, I graduated from that school 52 years ago when it was called Stafford Elementary School. All 6 grades were in there. But the overall restructuring of that, I didn't get prior to this. So it's a few questions in one, but it all has to do with Oxycocus. You mentioned 24, set two-story, 24 classrooms, but it's replacing how many classrooms?
I believe there's 6 currently in the trailer.
So it's a net gain of 18.
Correct. However, we are also doing modifications to some of the existing spaces that are in Oxycocus to gain a couple of those classrooms back. So I think with the trailer, we're kind of a net loss of 3. We're moving some of the other spaces back into the main building.
And it's sort of vague from this summer's video, but it looks like you're accommodating more for transportation and more parking for parents and stuff. How is that going to be set up exactly?
Yes, absolutely. So currently what we're showing is 2 separate new parking areas to accommodate the additional staff that will be required to have this 24 classroom addition. In the front of the school on Main Street, there we'll have a kind of about half of the new parking spots. I want to say it's somewhere around 48 new spots. And then at the back side of the school, we're carving out another approximately 40 spots closer to where the existing loading dock is.
Okay. Sounds good. And, just more of a comment from this summer that I only mentioned one thing, but other things popped in my head. There's a lot of things that are antiquated that would no longer meet building requirements today, just in terms of bathroom access and stuff like that. So just a little shout out for that. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one online. Yes. Somebody wrote a question. Go ahead.
Tracy Mastroli asks, why is the vote in September and not during the regular election in November when most voters will participate? And I think that we'll direct that to Mr. Siegel.
Sure. Yeah, so doing the referendum in September gives us the most flexibility in trying to get some work done in the summer of 25. There is a design timeline to put all this together, as nothing is designed currently. We've put together a plan to get budgeting and approval from the state and get funding. So should the referendum pass in September, we would start design in October. We could still get a bid package out in sometime in March, April for summer work of 25. If it goes in November and we're bidding May, June, it's not going to be able to happen for that summer. And then the costs of those improvements that we were planning on doing the summer of 25 go up because now you're doing them a year later. So that gives you the best opportunity to get some of the work done. And also the addition, we want to try to get footings in the ground and get the building constructed, at least on the building envelope, so that before the winter months come and it gets cold, they can continue working on the addition on the inside and have that somewhat contained. And September gives us the best opportunity to get those accomplished as well.
Anything else online? Anybody else? Okay. Anybody else in the audience? Anything? Sure.
John Bennett, 219 Hillard. Is there going to be a project labor agreement on this job since it exceeds $5 million?
If you could repeat that one more time.
Is there going to, because the projects are in excess $5 million, will there be a project labor agreement on these projects?
Thanks.
So that's not something we've discussed at this point, at this level for having a PLA, which is union labor.
Not necessarily, that's not true. Project labor agreements are for qualified contractors, not just union labor.
Well, we have to discuss that. That's not something that's final yet. Once the referendum passes, there's all these design and bidding discussions that have to happen as far as how that goes. So that's not been decided yet. As you know, with public bid, we have to do prevailing wage at a minimum, but that's something that would be discussed shortly after. We would have to make that decision.
So with the Murphy's legislation for 5 million plus government projects?
Yeah, we would have to look. We would have to look at that. I've done bigger projects where the attorneys have said we did not do them. I've done others where we've done them. It just depends on the district. It's something that will be discussed with the attorneys and with the district upon successful referendum.
I hope you do, because I want to see qualified contractors doing it. I hope you also consider local contractors. Anybody from out of state would be not very good here. You know, we spend our money here. We want to make sure it's done here. Okay?
Yep, understood.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. There's nothing else. Again, feel free to email us online. We'll get back to you with all the questions. Thank you for coming out. I hope this was informative. We'll be here at the end if anybody wants to come up and talk to us. We're here. And again, thank you. And just remember to vote September 17th. Thank you. Sure. Go ahead, Joe.
Zola Galley Avenue. Most of the people up here know it. George knows me. He knows me. A few others in here know me, right? They were here when those garages, those trailers were put in. Is that right? Right? Okay. What I see happening over here tonight, maybe I'm getting out of line by saying it, but there's some things that I represent in this town. There's 8,500 seniors, okay? At one time or another, I met most of them. And I'm here tonight because they don't like it. I have to say what I have to say. I don't pull no punches. I don't lie. I just say it the way I see it. And if the people come to me, I don't charge nobody. I don't make no money off it, which they can verify right there. I've been in this school district for a long time. The money's too much for them. You're going to kill the seniors in this town. They're not going to go for this $78 million. That's number one. Then to get it, well, I wouldn't talk while she's talking. You got something to say?
Keep going, Joe. Yep. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. This here, I was at a meeting the other day with these people. And first I want to accept all you people. Thank you for coming here tonight. And today, or whatever you want to call it, ladies and gentlemen, but I got ahead of myself. Then I brought up a subject on the tax freeze. Now, we had an attorney sent a letter to us. What would happen if this thing was approved? What would happen with the tax freeze? So he sent a letter back. What did it say, George? It says if it goes along with whatever's in the blue book and stuff like that, then it's going to work. But if it goes out any other way, who knows what can happen? So what happens to these seniors? If the tax freeze was dropped, you can't say it's not gonna be dropped, because in 2022, it was dropped. Our governor at that time dropped it, because I was there. There was senators there, there was other people there, and it was dropped for 1 week. Sweeney was at that time a senator, and there was a couple other people there. Now, if they dropped it, and the simple way of getting it back up was I had to get up when they introduced me, that he was spending $2,000, whatever he was gonna do was spend it on the meals to feed everybody that was there. And the seniors were out shopping in the supermarket. Why, he asked me, and I told him. They were out to buy 10 cans of dog food or cat food, that's what they're gonna eat. Because all they had was what they were getting from Social Security was like $700, $1,000, $1,200. And that was because it was dropped. So if that was to happen right now, what would happen to these people? So I have to look at their end, the seniors' end. Everybody wants to build this thing, this is fine, they can all go ahead. How many live in the area? How many don't live in the area? And how many have that kind of money? And I have to look out at that end, which I get around in quite a few towns. I've been in touch with everybody, and this is what I'm getting. I didn't come here to knock down George and whatever he wants to do with this, but right now I'm thinking this is the time. This is a bad time. I know you're looking at me like I'm saying something wrong, but that's what I'm going to say. At this time here, I think it doesn't pay. And if you can get it going, then you shouldn't have an uphill fight. If you all break it down and do what you're going to do, instead of doing it all at one time, take a section like the schools. You're saying the schools 1921 in 2021. So those schools were, some of them were in bad shape the way it was, but nobody followed up. They did a good job keeping them going. But so far, you say for the better of the kids. Well, the kids that we have here, I know a lot of them that have graduated, they're all doing fine. Some of them don't want to do it, that's their fault. But it's not the way the buildings were put together or what's going to happen. We were in the trailers a couple of weeks ago. Those trailers are falling apart, but they should have been torn down a long time too. Because they served their purpose at that time. You know that yourself, is that right? And if it wasn't for those trailers, half of these kids wouldn't be doing what they're doing now. Most of them live in the town anyway. They're supporting their families over here. What's going to happen? You're going to put this in for 25 years. They're going to be paying interest on all this stuff here to save just 25 years for later on. Half of them, I won't be here in that time. And so will other people in this room. So I think, to me, and what I hear from the outside, if you want me to verify it, I can get you all the signatures you want. And I get them shortly too. If you tell me you get them in a week, you'll have them all in a week from everybody in this town. As far as I know, there's a few that want to do it, fine. Let them chip in and do it. But if you find another way of doing it, then I say go ahead. Okay. But right now, I think it's the wrong time to do it. Okay. Thanks, George.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, we do have two other questions that came in online. Christine, if you want to read them.
This question is for Ms. Edwards. They want to know how does the assessed value calculated for Stafford Township?
The assessed value is the average home assessment. So that takes the number of residential properties by the total residential assessment. It comes in on the tax list. It's on the abstractive ratables for Ocean County. So it gets pulled right from those direct documents, and the current average home assessment is $294,141. As I mentioned earlier, you can go on the website and plug in your assessment from your tax bill, and it'll give you your exact dollar based on your home assessment.
Okay, and we have another question.
This is also a question for Mr. Kozik and Mr. Siegel. What is the plan for students during the construction of the addition?
So included in the cost of the Oxycocos project, we did have an allowance in there for installation of temporary trailers to move certain students, as construction's occurring. and not displace those students while the addition is being constructed. Obviously, we're getting rid, demolishing 6 classrooms in the trailer. So while the addition is being constructed, we will need to find a home for those students. Right now, it's planned those modular buildings will be installed at the primary learning center.
Any other questions online? Any other questions? Sure.
Lisa Bennett, 219 Hilliard. I just wanted to mention though, the figures that you're giving as far as the taxes, we're going to be going through a reassessment. So by 2026, a third of us may be paying more, a third of us may be paying the same, and a third of us may be paying less. So those figures that you're giving, that's based on the assessed value as of today, correct?
That's correct. That's the assessed value as of today. Any reassessment would be done across the board. So remember, your tax impact is based on not just the residential piece of the township, but it's on commercial, industrial, anything that's taxed around the township. So in a reassessment situation, most likely the total net valuation taxable will increase. That will then decrease the tax rate overall. Now, as you mentioned, if a home is reassessed and your home is assessed higher, that'll depend on the weight of whether the total residential assessments all go up disproportionately compared to the rest of the taxing town. It will depend. I can't tell you what that number is going to be because we don't have the reassessment, but it will be fluctuation. There is possible that this number could go down based on if businesses are reassessed higher. The weight of the residential properties, the tax rate could be lower.
Correct. So, but if you're in that unfortunate position where you are that 1/3 that got assessed higher, then that means your burden on that paying that bond back is going to be a little bit higher as well, correct?
It
Right.
certainly could be.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
George,
Sure.
2 questions did come to the voter one, and they gave their address, so I think they're watching live. Christine, did you look at the voter ones? The email? Because they gave their address. Is it okay if I just read them? It said, this one is Mike Foss. Hi, this is Mike Foss from Manahawkin. My question is there an itemized, I'm sorry, the lights are really bad, I can't read. Itemized list of improvements and costs for each that can be provided? And has there been consideration made to reduce the scope of the improvements?
So we do have an itemized list for the most part that we can certainly share. Does anybody want to elaborate on that? I mean, we could definitely get that out.
Can you hear me now? Okay. We do have an itemized list of the costs that are available. If you have an email address on that, I can share that with you. I think the newspapers have also posted it on the newspaper sites. And I believe it's also on our website, the cost for each project. The larger project, obviously being the 55 million that's going to the Oxycocus rebuild and renovations. And the smallest project then being the STAC, which is about 1.1 million. And those numbers could all fluctuate. It will all depend on what the bids come in at.
Okay, so we'll get it to that email address. And again, it is up on the website and we'll make sure it's up there.
And then the other one, Danielle Balance, 205 Atlantis Avenue, Manahawkin. Is there any consideration in the projects for actual health and safety issues in the school buildings, such as mold, pests, molding, roofing issues, and things of that nature?
Yeah, just.
Yeah, so certainly in any of the classrooms at Oxycocus in particular, where we're doing renovations, those are going to be full gut alterations of those spaces, and that will include potentially windows. We're also doing fire alarm upgrades at a couple of the buildings. That's definitely a life and safety health measure. And then, of course, HVAC upgrades. There's HVAC upgrades occurring throughout most of these buildings. HVAC, obviously, everyone who's lived through COVID the past 4 years understands how much air quality is important in these spaces. So kind of in each building, there will be a level of health and safety upgrades as part of those improvements.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have another question. Okay, Christine, online, go ahead.
Mr. Salamini would like to add a comment about spreading the cost over time.
Okay.
Second, Mr. Salamini, we're getting you up on the screen. Okay, go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Christine. I think just to kind of echo that gentleman's sentiments that spoke about the impact to the seniors. In my conversations with the board, they were very aware of the potential impact on seniors and all the residents of the community with regards to the tax impact. And that's one of the main reasons, the strategy too, that goes into doing a referendum so that the cost gets spread out over the useful life of the asset. And everybody that's going to use the asset over the next 20 or so years pays their fair share. If the district tried to address those needs currently, everybody that currently lives in Stafford would have to pay for the full cost of those improvements or additions. So then that would be an extreme burden to the taxpayers and to the seniors in the community if the school district tried to address those costs of those projects, either in this year's budget or the upcoming budgets. So arguably by spreading it out over the 20 years, that should drastically decrease every individual's responsibility towards paying their portion of the project. So I think the board was very cognizant of that. But we all understand, everything in our society is expensive and, no one takes that lightly. But there is a mindset to spread the cost out so it is fair to everyone. And we're not unfairly burdening the current residents with the cost of construction.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. I know as well in the surrounding areas, there are people doing referendums that did go to the 9.9 tax levy, which they did not need voter approval. They've done that and they're attacking on a referendum. We know as a board and administrators in a group that we did not want to do that to our taxpayers. We did not want to go to the 9.9% that we could have done without a say in the matter. But we knew, this was, 75.7 is a lot of money. We know a lot of seniors are on fixed incomes and we were cognizant of that. And that's something that we stayed steady till. We will always do that as well. So I just wanted you to be aware there is areas in our area that have done both referendum and, they've jacked up their tax levy as well. We did not do that. Just wanted to add that as well. Sure.
Barbara Crystal, 248 Bulkhead Avenue. What is the website for the itemized list of expenses, costs for the projects? Because we looked on the Stafford Schools website and couldn't find the list under the referendum materials.
If the list isn't on there, it will be made available. I just found it. I just found it. So that will be listed on the website if it's not on there already. But just to reiterate what I had said, the itemized list is a compilation of everything that was discussed today insofar as what the expenditures are. The project costs obviously are still soft because the project hasn't gone out to bid yet, but we're looking at investing anywhere between $7 million at Ocean Acres to do the referendum items in that building. And within each of those different buildings, the costs are spread out. So even though it looks like the 25 million is a lot, it's really spread out through many of the buildings, Ocean Acres being the next highest incurred cost as a result of that building is starting to age. And those, the items that are in that building are reaching their useful life because they're original to the building. I just want to add that over the years, we also do repairs and remediations to other parts of our building, and we use the funds that we currently have available through our budget. As a result of our current state aids, it's becoming more and more difficult to put aside money to do major repairs and to also continue the instructional value that we provide to our students. So for that reason alone, it's more important than ever now to put the monies into rebuilding our facilities so that they are lasting for the next 25 years.
I think to, ease everybody's, this is a big ticket item. We all know that, especially during these economic times. If you were to have these itemized costs, underneath each school building, like these are the costs at Oxy, and not just 55 million, but we want to see a list of what's being done. Like you did have a list published on your flyer, but the costs weren't there, like the different items. Could you please do that instead of, okay, at Ocean Acres, it's going to be 25 million. Can we see what's adding up to the
Yes,
25 million?
yes, we
Please.
could do that, and it'll be approximate costs.
Absolutely.
And we will be able to provide that. But once again, like I indicated, the highest cost will be at the Oxycocus, and then it will be followed by the Ocean Acres, the PLC, in that order of how much the costs are going to be.
And to see them broken down item by item, within the buildings would be fantastic.
Yeah, we will do that. We'll make sure we'll look at it and we'll make sure we post that up.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nick Delafoe, 67 Patio Lane. I just like to just have something clarified. We've been throwing the $75,000 number around, and we're getting 75 million, and we're getting 15 million from the state. So it almost sounds in essence that we're going to be spending 90 million, because you're going to take a bond for 75 million, and the 15 million that you're taking from the state, you're adding to the 75. Is that correct? Is it really 90 million?
No, the total project cost is 75.7 million. So when you see the breakdown
Right.
that they're referring to, all the projects will add up to 75.7 million.
Oh, all right,
The
because
district-
when we get the 15 million, why isn't that applied to the 75 million to bring that cost down to 60?
We have to issue the full amount of project costs because we're not receiving it in the form of a grant. It comes in the form of debt service aid. So we have to issue the 75.7 million in a bond. And then annually, there'll be principal and interest payments that the district has to make back to the public markets for whoever bought the bond issue.
Right.
The state will be giving us a percentage of that each year, which will equate to 15.9 million plus interest over the 25 years.
Is that applied to pay the debt on the
Yeah.
75 million?
So annually, the school district will get a state aid form from the state that will say, here is your number, which we already know what it's going to look like. We know what it is.
Mhm.
So we can assume that going into the budget, it gets booked as a revenue coming in from the state and it offsets the debt service. So the tax levy is only on the net amount. So the district is only taxing the net debt service amount.
Okay, because the monthly $22 number, I don't think that's actually a reasonable number, because I think you could have come up with a more realistic number on the percentages on the medium of the average cost per month, because like you said, also, we're going to be reassessed.
Well, that's not,
I know it's out of.
that's a
that's
real
down the
number.
road.
That is a
Right,
real
okay.
number. It's released in a report. It's in the abstract of ratables. You can go on the
Okay.
state website and
Alright.
find it. I mean, it is a real number.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we're
welcome.
just gonna spend 75 million. Basically, right? That's all the contracts, all
Se-
that 75 million,
It-
and the 15 million is to be put towards that 75 million.
Correct.
To pay that debt. All right,
Correct.
thank you. That's
Mhm.
Come on up.
Hi, Sarah Boyle, 252 Leeward Road. In the event this doesn't get passed, is there a backup plan? Like what happens if the majority of the community says no?
So, yeah, we talked about this briefly. We do have a potential plan in place. It's not conducive. It's not going to fix the problem of the population coming in. Ultimately, our class sizes are going to go way up. We really are maxed in all of our buildings. So we haven't really spoken at length about it. We have ideas. We threw around many, but we'll see if this doesn't pass, then we have to sit down and look at that.
I just want to add that if the referendum doesn't pass and we have to absorb these expenditures on our own, we will not have that opportunity of state aid to help with those funds.
I get that, but the repairs and such will still have to come. I mean, I get that. And I'm not saying I'm gonna say no. I'm just saying, you know, word around town, a lot of people aren't feeling it. You know, they can't even do repairs to their own homes.
So with the
So-
school district, as things start to break down, you start making more emergency repairs. And if we can't afford to rebuild or to replace the items that are failing us, we end up doing a lot of Band-Aids, which end up costing a lot more money because we don't have enough money to pull it all together and make those repairs and improvements.
And I think it's important to add too, that if the district doesn't have capital reserve to offset whatever those emergencies are, the only other avenue besides doing a bond, having a bond referendum, is to do a lease, and they cannot go longer than 5 years in borrowing for that money. So all of those projects would have to be paid over a 5-year period.
And would that would that go onto the taxpayers? And
Absolutely.
So
And pay, yeah.
are we notifying the taxpayers that that is the ultimatum?
Well, all I'm saying is if there's an emergency project and they have to borrow for that, there'll be a public hearing, they'll be talking about it at a board meeting, and then that's really the only avenue to borrow money if it's not in capital reserve.
It just may help some of the people who are leaning towards no, maybe sway to the yes side, knowing that the other side to that is not going to help them either. You know, I'm just, you know, just to make
It's a
sure
good
everything,
question.
yeah, just to make everything kind of transparent to people. You know, both sides, the yes side and the no side. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's a good. Okay, anybody else? Any other online questions? Anything? Okay, really, thank you. We're going to be here, so feel free to come up to us, talk to us, ask us questions. Really, thank you for coming out. I encourage you to go to the website, and you know, that's really it. So again, thank you. But we're here. Any questions?